To tell all about this, I invite Dr. Sanjay Kumar. On to Dr. Sanjay Kumar. Over to Dr. Sanjay Kumar.
Thank you, sir. Good evening to all. We will straight away go to the topic because of shortage of time. Some problem with this. This is the reason why we have this CME today. Quite unexpectedly, a cluster of cases of Zika viral infection were reported from our country. This infection has every potential to become another epidemic. The vector is very common. And we have to see that our healthcare system, which is already dealing with a lot of COVID-19 cases, are not further overburdened. Let us go straight away to the timeline of Zika virus. Way back in 1947, Alexander John Haddo discovered this new virus. He was a part of a team doing research on yellow fever in Uganda. The virus was isolated from a rhesus monkey, and he named this virus Zika after the Zika forest where his lab was situated. But Haddo was not particularly alarmed with this virus because he was already dealing with other deadlier viruses like the yellow fever virus. But when the Zika virus grabbed international headlines recently, Haddo's work came into the spotlight. It was in 1948, John Haddo himself isolated this virus from its vector, Aedes africanus. And in 1952, the first human cases were detected in Uganda and Tanzania in a zero surveillance study. And from 1969 to 1983, the non-geographical distribution of Zika expanded to equatorial Asian countries like India, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Pakistan. But only sporadic cases were reported. No outbreaks were reported during this time. And the disease continued to be regarded as a rare, mild infection. But in 2007, the picture changed, maybe because the virus has become more pathogenic. Zika spread from Asia and Africa to cause the first large outbreak in humans on the Pacific island of Yap, in the Micronesia, the Federated States of Micronesia. Prior to this event, only 14 cases of human Zika virus disease has been documented, but in the Pacific island of Yap, about 75% of the population were infected. And in 2013, another major outbreak was there in the Pacific Islands. And during this outbreak in French Polynesia, generating thousands of cases, the association between Zika and Guillain-Barré syndrome was established. And in March 2015, the largest outbreak occurred in Brazil and other North American countries. And in the Brazilian epidemic, the association between Zika virus infection and microcephaly and the congenital Zika syndrome was established. And the infection soon spread to America, Africa, and other regions of the world as well. And in February 2016, WHO declared that the recent association of Zika virus infection with clusters of microcephaly and other neurological disorders constituted a public health emergency of international concern. It was not actually a pandemic, it was regarded as a public health emergency. And as regards to India, the first 4 proven cases of Zika virus from India were reported from Gujarat in 2017. This was followed by major outbreaks in the states of Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh in 2018. Fortunately, the outbreaks in India were not associated with any neurological problems. This is a Zika virus biology. It belongs to the family Flaviviridae of the genus Flavivirus. We are familiar with the siblings in other siblings in this group, like the chikungunya, dengue, Japanese encephalitis, West Nile fever, etc. This virus is an enveloped virus which contains a single-stranded positive sensed RNA genome. This RNA genome is made up of 11,000 nucleotides. As you can see, the coverings are made up of proteins, and there are called the structural proteins, and there are several non-structural proteins as well, which helps the virus to evade human immune responses. As you all know, this is the vector of Zika virus infection, Aedes mosquitoes, particularly in our state, Aedes aegypti. Also, the slender Aedes albopictus mosquitoes also. They are tiny white speckled mosquitoes, and they are found especially in the tropical countries. They are very efficient vectors because they usually bite in the daytime when the human movement is there. And they are also urban dwellers, and they can be found inside our house and in the peri-domestic area. And they also bite very ferociously. They bite very deep into the human skin. These are the breeding places of Aedes mosquitoes, clean, stagnant water in and outside our houses. And this is how Zika virus is transmitted. The index case usually is a person who has traveled to an endemic area, and when the mosquito bites the index case, the mosquito is infected, and after an extensive incubation period of about 10 days, the mosquito becomes infective. And when the female Aedes mosquito takes its blood meal from another person, the virus is transmitted to that person, and there is a phase of viremia, and the virus is carried by other mosquitoes into the community. And there are other modes of transmission as well. One is the vertical transmission. That is very important, that we will deal separately. And then the sexual transmission. Zika can be transmitted from men and women to their sexual partners as well. And most of the time, the transmission occurs from symptomatic man to woman. This is because Zika virus can persist in semen for about 2 or 3 months. And the viral RNA can be detected up to 1 year in human semen. And during the phase of viremia, Zika can be transmitted through blood donation, blood transfusions, by organ transplants, and also by laboratory spillover. Although Zika virus is demonstrated in the breast milk, there are no documented evidence that Zika can be transmitted through breastfeeding. The incubation period of Zika virus disease is about 3 to 14 days, and the viremia ranges from a few days to 1 week. In some pregnant women, the viremia can be longer than expected. This is because pregnancy is a state of immune suppression, and the immune responses of the pregnant women will be blunted. And the virus, as we have said earlier, the virus remains in semen and urine longer than in the blood. Coming to the clinical features, a large majority, estimated to be about 80% of the patients, are absolutely asymptomatic. There won't be any symptoms at all. They are found only during a zero surveillance study or when an epidemic is ongoing in the community. And even in patients who develop symptoms, this illness presents just like an acute short duration febrile illness. And they will present with a typical acute fever characterized by a maculopapular rash, a non-purulent conjunctivitis, myalgia, and arthralgia. And it is a very self-limiting disease, and the symptoms seldom last beyond a week. And the complications are also extremely rare, in less than 1% of the patients only. And the case fatality is almost zero for all practical purposes, unless you are terribly immunocompromised. And this is a rash, a typical rash that is seen in Zika virus infection. Rash often starts on the tongue and spread to the face, arms, legs, soles, and palms. The rash is a maculopapular one, predominantly macular with a few papules. Other viral infections like dengue, chikungunya also have rashes, but Zika rash was reported to be typically itchy. This is how you differentiate, these three flaviviral infections: chikungunya, dengue, and Zika. The fever is a predominant feature in chikungunya and dengue, while rash is a predominant symptom in Zika virus infection. Myalgia is more common with dengue infections, while arthralgia is common with chikungunya, where large joints are involved. But in Zika, even though arthralgia is there, only small joints are involved. And edema is a feature of Zika virus infection, while retroorbital pain is more common with the dengue. Conjunctivitis is common with both chikungunya and Zika. Lymphadenopathy you can see in chikungunya and dengue, while hepatomegaly is a feature of chikungunya only, while hemorrhage is characteristic of dengue infections. And the neurological complications, and there is growing evidence that Zika infection may also trigger Guillain-Barré syndrome. So, you know, Guillain-Barré syndrome is a rare autoimmune condition in which the immune system attacks the peripheral nervous system. This can cause muscle
neurological
weakness.
complication of Zika എന്തോന്ന് അറിയോ?
Guillain-Barré syndrome. This can cause muscle weakness, sensory problems, pain, and sometimes paralysis. The reported incidence is 2.4 per 10,000 cases of Zika infection. It's usually these neurological complications start after 5 to 10 days of infection. It's treated just like any other Guillain-Barré syndrome, like with PLEX, IVIG, etc. PLEX is a plasma exchange treatment. Also, there are other rare neurological complications also, like transverse myelitis, polyneuropathy, and meningoencephalitis. Coming to the lab diagnosis, there is a Zika RT-PCR, which is being done in Trivandrum now. There are two types of tests. One is a trioplex test and the other is a monoplex. Trioplex detects RNA for 3 viruses, chikungunya, Zika and dengue together, while monoplex is specific for Zika RNA. And the samples that should be sent is whole blood, serum, urine, amniotic fluid, plasma, and CSF. But the best yield is with the whole blood. And the other test is ELISA test to detect IgM antibodies. That is done now in NIV Pune only. The problem is that the IgM antibodies are cross-reactive with the other flavivirus infections. Like it can be confused with the dengue antibodies and the chikungunya antibodies. And the PRINT test, plague neutralizing reduction test, it detects a neutralizing antibodies. It's more specific. The sample that should be sent is if the symptoms are less than 7 days old, it's best to send the serum. During 7 to 10 days, you should send the urine for PCR. Whom to test? Ideally, all suspected cases should be tested, but is it really needed, considering the very mild nature of the disease and in the absence of definitive treatment? Also, considering the acute shortage of testing kits in our state, is it really needed? So for all practical purposes, testing is confined to high-risk cases only, especially in pregnancy. Even not all pregnant women need to be tested. Pregnant women who are symptomatic in the last 3 months, or if there is a suspected case in the family or neighborhood in the last 3 months, or if the fetus is showing to have some radiological abnormalities, or if there is an IUD, or if there is evidence of congenital Zika syndrome, or if the mother has traveled to an endemic area, or if the mother is having a sexual contact with a confirmed or probable case, in all these conditions, the mother can be tested for Zika. And also in other neuroinflammatory syndromes, just to confirm the diagnosis. And regarding blood transfusion, not all blood need to be screened. If you are giving blood to a pregnant lady, then that must be screened for Zika virus infection. Now, as you know, there is no specific treatment for Zika virus infection, only antipyretics, antipruritics, etc. Now we come to the most important part, the vertical transmission.
Vertical transmission ഉണ്ടാവും കേട്ടോ പിള്ളേരുമായിട്ട്.
Vertical transmission is the most distressful and terrible complication of Zika virus infection. One thing you should keep in mind is that a pregnant mother can transmit the disease to the fetus, irrespective of the fact that the mother is symptomatic or not. In other words, an asymptomatic mother having a subclinical infection can transmit the disease to the fetus equally effective. Then how common is a vertical transmission and the congenital Zika syndrome? This is a representation made from results of 7 very recent large studies. The chances of the fetus getting infected is very high during the first trimester, that is about 45 to 50. But all of them need not develop congenital Zika syndrome. And the rate of infection comes down to 28% in the second trimester and to 25% in the third trimester. The incidence of congenital Zika syndrome is 9% if the mother is infected in the first trimester. That is 1 out of 9 to 10 babies will develop congenital Zika. And the incidence of congenital Zika syndrome comes down to 3% in the second trimester and 1% in the third trimester. A congenital Zika
Congenital
syndrome.
Zika syndrome എന്തൊക്കെയാ ഫീച്ചേഴ്സ്?
Coming to that. Congenital infection can damage the neuronal development of the unborn child. And congenital syndrome is a pattern of birth defects. It's a group of these birth defects in babies infected with the Zika virus during pregnancy. They are the most important one is microcephaly. Then the damage to the underlying brain and the collapsed skull bones can be seen. And there will be problems with the vision and hearing. There will be seizures, and there will be problems with the feeding and difficulty in swallowing. And there will be widespread contractions. And one question is that why there is a microcephaly in congenital Zika syndrome? Zika virus has great affinity to damage the neuronal progenitor cells, that is, the very young cells. The young developing nerve cells before their differentiation into glial cells or neurons are affected the most. That's why infants, newborn babies will get microcephaly. Although many features are seen as part of congenital Zika syndrome can be caused by other infections during pregnancy, these 5 features, when coming together, are very characteristic of Zika virus. They are severe microcephaly with the skull partially collapsed, decreased brain tissue with the subcortical calcifications, damage to the back of the eye, including macular scarring, focal pigmentary mottling, and widespread congenital contractures like clubfoot arthrogryposis and hypertonia, since this is a UML lesion. And this is how you measure the head circumference to detect hydrocephaly. First is a normal baby, second is a baby with microcephaly, and the third is a baby with a severe microcephaly. The head circumference is measured with the most prominent part in the occiput, and in the front it's 2 centimeters above the glabella. There are patients with Zika virus, congenital Zika virus syndrome.
An increase in the number of babies born with unusually small heads at the same time as the Zika virus.
Here, there's an unusual increase in the number of cases of microcephaly among newborns. More than 3,100 babies in the last few months, with heads that are smaller than normal, impacting their overall development and health. Can to help the families financially. And
Congenital Zika virus infection has also been associated with other brain abnormalities, as you can see from this CT scan picture here. There is a cerebral cortex thinning, abnormal gyral patterns, there is enlargement of the ventricles, subcortical calcifications, corpus callosum abnormalities, the decrease in white matter, cerebellar hypoplasia, and all this leads to development of hydrocephalus, and there are neuronal migrational disorders also. And the scalp skin will be very loose in these patients. And with more birth abnormalities linked to Zika virus, this infection may be more sinister, more deadlier than we might have thought. These are the ocular findings in infants with congenital Zika virus infection. There will be colobomas, there will be macular hemorrhages, subluxation of the lens, glaucoma, optic nerve atrophy, microphthalmia. All features can be found in the eyes of babies born with congenital Zika syndrome. These are the widespread contractures seen with congenital Zika syndrome. The contractures can range from a single clubfoot to a bilateral talipes equinovarus to widespread contractures leading to a condition known as arthrogryposis multiplex congenita. And as expected, there will be severe neurological sequelae that include motor disabilities, cognitive or learning disabilities, tone abnormalities, excessive crying and irritability, extrapyramidal symptoms like tremor, ataxia, swallowing or feeding difficulties, vision and hearing impairment, and epilepsy. And recently, two disorders has also been grouped. They are the paralysis of the diaphragm and the neurogenic bladder. This is how you manage a case in pregnancy. If the pregnant mother, if there is a possible Zika virus exposure and the mother is symptomatic, what you have to do? You have to do both the RT-PCR and ELISA test for this mother. For RT-PCR, paired serum and urine as soon as possible and up to 12 weeks should be tested. And ELISA also serum should be tested as soon as possible and up to 12 weeks. And if both this ELISA and RT-PCR are negative, we can safely conclude that the mother is not having Zika virus infection, and we have to look for other causes of exanthematous fever. And if both of them or one of them is positive, you have to start doing ultrasound for this patient at 8 to 12 weeks of pregnancy and practically for every week, for every month. And you have to watch for congenital Zika syndrome. No amniocentesis is recommended because amniotic fluid can be negative for Zika RNA, but the child can be, the fetus can be infected. And also, and vice versa, if the fetus is infected, amniotic fluid can be negative. So it is inconclusive. And the second group is possible ongoing exposure, but the mother is asymptomatic, like we have in Trivandrum now. There is an epidemic going on, but the mother is not infected. And for this, we have to do the RT-PCR only. RT-PCR is done at the first visit and then at the start of every trimester. And the third is mothers who are having a recent exposure, but there is no ongoing exposure, like a travel to an endemic area, and the mother is totally asymptomatic. You have, this you have to do as the same as the first group. You have to do both RT-PCR and ELISA and follow up. And if there is evidence of congenital Zika syndrome, you have to do RT-PCR and ELISA and amniotic fluid testing if the physician has taken amniotic fluid for some other purposes. Amniotic fluid can be tested. And the placental and fetal tissues after delivery also should be tested for viral R. As there is no effective treatment and no vaccine available, vector control is the only method of prevention of Zika virus infection. This is done by observing dry day. What is dry day? Once in a week, we have to empty and scrub, turn over, cover and throw out items that hold water in and around our houses. And you have to tightly cover water storage containers. And you have to use larvicides to kill larvae in the containers. Use an outdoor insect spray. And if you have water tanks or septic tanks, repair all the cracks or gaps. And mosquito control measures inside our house, you have to use window and door screens, use air conditioning whenever possible. And once in a week, you have to empty, scrub, turn over or throw away out items that hold water. And you have to use an indoor insect fogger or insect spray. You have to adopt personal protection measures as well. Cover up exposed skin, wear long-sleeved shirts and long pants, dress your child in clothing that covers arms and legs, and permethrin treated clothing that will repel mosquitoes, that will protect you even after multiple washings of the clothes. And prevention of sexual transmission is also very important. For that, you have to adopt correct and consistent safe sexual practices. You have to use condoms. That includes male and female condoms. And the WHO recommendation is that if the traveler is a female, for at least 8 weeks after return from an endemic country, condoms should be used or they should practice abstinence. And if the traveler is a male, for at least 3 months after return, condoms should be used or should practice abstinence. This is the latest WHO guideline. And regarding vaccines, a lot of vaccines were under trial: live attenuated viral vector vaccines, subunit vaccines, and inactivated vaccines. A lot of vaccines were under trial, but none were officially licensed for use in the public. This is because Zika virus, there is a declining and unpredictable epidemic, because almost all of the outbreaks like that happened in Brazil or South American countries are all waned or they have died out. And we don't have full knowledge about the full immune responses of Zika virus infection. And also probably more than one vaccine may be needed, because live attenuated vaccine, we cannot give a pregnant lady for fear of congenital Zika virus infection. And there are other safety concerns as well, like the antibody dependent enhancement that has happened with the dengue virus vaccines, and also the possibility of Guillain-Barré syndrome. And we don't know how safe it is to give vaccines in pregnancy for the fear of congenital Zika syndrome. So only personal protection measures to avoid mosquito bite is the only way to prevent Zika virus infection.
Ver más allá de que hay esperanza de crecer sin ninguna complicación.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Kumar, for the excellent presentation. Now the subject is open for discussion. People can ask questions if they have any doubt.
Detected with Zika virus, Kottayam.
എറണാകുളത്ത് ഒരു കേസ് വന്നു. ഹെൽത്ത് വർക്കറെ അതെ അതെ അതെ
അജികുമാർ സാറിനോട് ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്തിരുന്ന എനിക്കൊരു പേഷ്യന്റ് വന്നിരുന്നു. ഇതേപോലെ മെയിലാണ്, പക്ഷെ ഹിസ് വൈഫ് ഈസ് പ്രഗ്നന്റ്. ഷുഡ് ഐ ഗെറ്റ് ഹിം ടെസ്റ്റഡ്? ഇതേപോലെ ഒരു എറ്റിപ്പിക്കൽ റാഷും ബോഡി പെയിനും ഐ കൺജങ്ക്റ്റിവൈറ്റിസ് ഒക്കെ ആയിട്ടാണ് വന്നത്.
Male patient, even though there are symptoms of Zika virus, there is no need to test, because it's a very mild.
His wife is pregnant. His wife is pregnant, so
wife is pregnant, then wife has to be tested, not father. No need to test. Wife has to be tested. That is a recommendation.
One more thing is that studies are saying that virus can be shedding through the semen of the affected man for the next 3 months. So better to avoid sexual contact for the next 3 months as per CDC and WHO.
There is a confusion with the CDC and WHO. CDC was telling previously that it was 6 months, but the latest 6 months. But the latest that we have, IMA has put.
CDC are saying 3 months and 2 months. 3 months for the man. Yeah.
അപ്പൊ ഇത് ആക്ച്വലി this is a striking resemblance to rubella, isn't it? Adultsല് വലിയ കോംപ്ലിക്കേഷൻസ് ഇല്ല, but it can get complicated in a mother and transmitted to the fetus, അല്ലേ? ഇതൊക്കെ തന്നെ
That is only important.
Adultsല് Guillain-Barré chance കൂടുതലുണ്ട്. Clustering can be.
But Guillain-Barré is not found in Indian outbreaks, because actually there are 2 lineages for this virus. One is the Asian lineage and the African lineage. All these neurological complications are seen with the African lineage. In India, no neurological complications have been reported so far, fortunately. But the virus can become pathogenic at any time. And we also expect Guillain-Barré cases here.
നമുക്ക് എവിടുന്ന് വന്നു ഈ സിക്ക എവിടുന്ന് കിട്ടി? നമ്മുടെ കേരളത്തില് നമ്മുടെ ഏഡീസ് മോസ്കിറ്റോ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ ഇത്രയും നാൾ ഇല്ലായിരുന്നല്ലോ സിക്ക.
ഇത്രയും നാൾ നമ്മൾ ടെസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യില്ല.
ഗുജറാത്തിൽ നിന്നൊരു കേട്ടില്ലേ?
സൈഡിൽ നിന്നാണല്ലോ, നെയ്യാറ്റിൻകര സൈഡിൽ നിന്നാണല്ലോ ആദ്യം ഇത് വന്നത്. പ്രോബബ്ലി ഇറ്റ് മൈ ഹാവ് കം ഫ്രം തമിഴ്നാട്.